You're listening to the Love Unplugged podcast, episode 114. How do you grow a community without it being at a snail's pace? This is something that we're all striving for, am I right? Being unique with your content creation so that it makes an impact, but also creates a meaningful conversation with your community is the goal, and today we're learning how. So without further ado, let's get to it. Hey there, I'm your host, Jessica Fragon, and I am passionate about doing the inner work needed to reach your goals. Let me be your guide as we navigate all the fears and insecurities that surface when it's time to step outside of your comfort zone. Along with my knowledgeable guests and industry experts, I'm here to teach you how to reawaken your life purpose and passion and create the steps to turn your intentions into action. Ultimately, my goal is to empower you to rise above those blocks holding you back and start living a life that you are worthy and deserving of. So come on, it's time to slow down, find a comfy spot with your favorite organic tea, and get inspired. Thank you for tuning in to the Love Unplugged podcast. Hello, loves. Today I am joined by the lovely Megan Ayres and Megan Fialkoff, founders of The Modern Day Wife, a hub for women who are aspiring to do it all. They have created a space for women, no matter what stage they are at, to be able to connect and find information that assists with not just their career, but their family life, social life, and relationships. So welcome, ladies. I am just so honored to have you as my guest. This is actually the second time that Megan Ayres has been a guest on this podcast, but I am just so excited to learn all about Megan Fialkoff's story as well. So before we start, for those that don't know you guys yet, I would love for you to share a little bit more about you personally.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for having us. We are so excited to be here. So I am Megan Ayres. I am based in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And I'm excited to tell you the story about Modern Day Wife, but that's a little bit about me. You guys might know me before in the Vancouver community from running and founding another business called Project U. So definitely events and connecting with people are 100% my jam. I absolutely love it. And I'm going to turn it over to Megan to introduce herself.
Great. Thank you. Okay. So my name is Megan Fialkoff. I'm the co-founder of Modern Day Wife. And I grew up in New York. I lived in Manhattan for 10 years and produced more than 2,000 events with several nonprofits and other organizations that I did public relations for. And moved out to Los Angeles 5 years ago when I got engaged and have been here since. And I'm married, have a new baby, moved into a house, and so have transitioned from my Manhattan single apartment living to Los Angeles easy home living. So little intro for you.
That's quite the change from New York to LA.
Oh my God. It's like literally a different planet. And I mean that fully in the fullest sense of what I mean by that. It's there's like nothing similar about it at all.
Wow.
So, yes. Yeah. And I think that you can move to Los Angeles from New York very easily because it's sunny, there's space. But to move from Los Angeles to Manhattan, I don't know how well people would survive. So
Yeah.
it's and that is, I say it too, from the fact that my husband did move to Manhattan at first. That was the plan was for us to live in New York. And you really can see how the narrowness of living in Manhattan, like there's not much sun. It's very narrow. The space is very small. It's a hustling way of life. And if you're not familiar with that or used to that, it can be really hard. So anyways.
How is it in LA? Like, is it very kind of busy? Like, is it hustling as well? Or is it more like a slower type pace?
Oh, it's completely different. So basically, I'll explain what Manhattan is like before I say how LA is like. So in Manhattan, I lived in Manhattan, right? For most of my time living there, I lived in an area called Murray Hill, which is basically Midtown East. And you wake up and you walk across the street to get your coffee. You jump on a subway and go to brunch with your friends. You walk to work, you finish work, you jump in a cab and you go on a date. And it's just like you feel so alive when you live in Manhattan. When you leave your apartment and you walk on the streets, you feel like $1 million. It is your runway. You put on your music and you walk to a vintage store on the weekend, and everything is fun, everything is exciting, and it doesn't matter how old, what ethnicity, poor, rich, everyone is mushed together. And I love that because everyone's there and you can be yourself, and there's lots of people being themselves there too, and it's amazing. And compared to LA, you're in a car, and what with pre-COVID, it takes basically an hour to get anywhere in your car. So it's like living in the suburbs, even though it's technically a city. And so it's different. You don't necessarily, when you leave work, you don't want to go to an event, or you don't want to go somewhere else because it takes so long to get everywhere. And so it's different. It's much slower, and it is less exciting. I think you have to definitely, probably with anything, make your own excitement and fill up your schedule yourself. But you definitely have to create it more here. Whereas in Manhattan, it's just, that is life.
Wow, that's quite the change.
Yeah.
That's quite the change.
Yes. Yes.
You're making me want to go to New York so bad right now.
Yeah, I was like, I'm so sold on New York. I'm like, oh God, I miss like going to New York. And then I'm like, oh God, like I used to live in like London, a big city. I'm like, Megan, you totally just sold. Everyone's going to New York now.
Yeah, that's the first trip after COVID.
Yeah, it is the best place in the whole world. I mean, my goal is to be so successful that I can be truly bi-coastal and have a place in Manhattan and have a place out here and go back and forth. So there you go.
Sounds like a plan. All right, so let's get to Modern Day Wife. So how did the idea for this business come to be?
Okay, great. Well, can't remember, Jessica, if last time I was on the podcast if I had started Modern Day Wife yet or not. I don't.
You were on the verge of it, I believe.
Right. Okay, cool. That's what I thought. Okay, good. So I was just sharing this story earlier today, but yeah, basically just, I guess it would have been at the end of 2018 when I decided to sell my business, Project U, which I'm sure a lot of Vancouver people who are listening probably have been to one of the events. And that community was really just focused on helping women elevate themselves in the world. I had like this idea, like I really just wanted to do something that was more talking about, how to do things in all areas, like kind of, you have confidence, but you're like, okay, I want to manage my career, and I, maybe want to have kids, and I want to have a great relationship, and I want to have a beautiful home, but like, how do I do it all? Because there's only so many hours in a day, right? So I kind of wanted to take this idea when I had the name pop in my mind, Modern Day Wife. I knew it was quite bold, but I like that. I was like, you know what? This is going to stand out. This is going to be really cool. And I have a vision for it. So that's kind of where it started. And then, in 2019, I launched the brand, which was amazing. I did it at Highcroft, which is a beautiful women's club in Vancouver. It was super luxury. We had like a grand piano player. I don't know if you remember seeing any of the videos, Jessica, but it was like super, super gorgeous. Great speakers, wonderful ambiance. And then from there, I kind of was like, you know what, how am I going to take this to the next level? And also one thing I wanted to add is that, this community isn't just for wives. It's very much inclusive to the modern day women and also the modern day couple. So we'll talk to you a little bit more about the couple aspect, I'm sure, as the podcast goes on today. But yeah, the next thing I kind of was really looking for was that right person to grow the business with. I had obviously had my experience having a business partner previously with Project U. So I kind of had, I guess you could say that was my case study for really figuring out how to run a successful business and different programs that would be ideal in my next chapter with Modern Day Wife. So that's really where the other Megan comes in. And I met her, I guess in June. I was doing an event with Elena Cardone, and I wanted to donate the funds directly to charity. And the charity that I picked, Megan actually runs this. So maybe I'll let her chime in here to tell you a little bit about our partnership and how that formulated.
Yeah, thank you. So basically, yeah, so Megan was putting on this digital event for Modern Day Wife, which was her first digital event with Elena Cardone in April. And she reached out to me on Instagram, super bubbly, and also not even realizing, I think, how amazing of a message she was sending. She basically messaged me and said, I'm putting on this digital event. I would love for all the proceeds to go to your nonprofit. Basically, would that be okay with you? And this is kind of, as a nonprofit executive director, that is a dream that never happens. So I was like, yes, like we don't need to jump on a call. The answer is yes. What do you need from me? Right. And so I basically started to get CC'd on her emails that she was sending to the affiliates of the event and seeing all the promotional pieces and the organization, all this various stuff, which piqued my interest. Then we did an IGTV interview together. And I was like, oh my God, this girl is amazing and totally someone I would want to work with. And then reached out to her basically and was like, look, when this event is over, I'd like to schedule a phone call with you. So we had a phone call and basically became business partners all over internet and the phone. We've actually never met in person yet, which is really hard
Wow.
to believe. Yes, especially because we've been through so many life events together. Like I had a baby in August, and we've put on these huge events together, and it's amazing. So basically, the direction that we went in at that point is when we formed the partnership together. We basically, I think, just took everything that we both, I think, ever wanted to do with a brand and just put it into action. So what I mean by that is we got a media department there. We put an ambassador director. We put a blog there. We got everything assigned, a social media coordinator, and got all these things into action. A person in charge of the reels. And basically the concept was just to really start communicating our message from as many avenues as possible. And it's interesting because that's actually something I learned from Grant Cardone, from a seminar that I went to of his, where I don't remember the exact wording, but he basically said something like, you need to be present and in people's face on every platform that you possibly can. You have to keep putting yourself there, keep being in the forefront. And it's so true. And I'm even learning from myself as I'm saying this, because with ticket sales, it's a really challenging thing to do with the amount of emails people are getting now and newsletters and Instagram posts and all this stuff. And so you really have to constantly be in their face to get yourself known. So the whole point of that time period was just, let's do everything and let's not do it step by step. Let's just do it all at once. Just eliminating the time, eliminating the idea that we couldn't do everything at the same time. We just decided we were going to do everything and we would be able to handle it. And that was it. And that's kind of where we're at this point. We're growing, we're expanding, and we're doing more, and we're putting systems in place so we can take on more people and we can do more functions without having a limit, really. So there you
Wow.
go.
That's quite interesting because you always hear that you don't need to be on every platform, right? But does that work? And obviously with your success in such a short time frame, maybe that's not the right approach.
Yeah. We're not even hardly on as many platforms as we should be. We're about to expand to 3 more this month. But we did definitely jump it up. Like one of the first things that we did when we got someone to start doing our newsletters was I said, we need to put all of that, like a simple thing of we need to put all the icons at the bottom of the newsletter and link them all to all of these pages. And whether people are clicking on it or not, it does put the presence that you are big, you are everywhere. And mind my French, you do have your shit together. you're able to manage putting yourself on all those platforms, and not just putting yourself on those platforms and then there's one post from 10 years ago, but actively posting. And it doesn't need to be everything honestly is easy to get done now, with Canva. And Megan and I just learned of another program like that recently. I forget the name that someone introduced us to, where they also have nice templates that they have a free program or a paid program. Everything is so user friendly, and you have to just be willing to work hard and realize it's not going to be a 9 to 5 shift when you have your own job. And Megan and I both have the same work ethic. And I think that is one of the reasons why we get along so great, is that we will sometimes text each other at 7 in the morning or 11 at night. On Sundays, we'll be setting up Zoom calls like we did yesterday. Like, it's not going to be like, clocking in and clocking out.
Mm-hmm.
So we always start one question with one thing, and then it comes into a whole other thing. There's so much to say.
I love that.
Yeah.
So when you first started the business, Megan Ayres, Megan, did you know what you wanted to do, or did you figure that all out when Meg came onto the scene? So like, did you know you wanted to do events, have a membership, have apparel? Like when I looked at your website, I was just like, holy crap, she really does have a lot of things going on. Or did you like learn it as you went and then figuring out what your community wanted and needed?
That's a really interesting question. I definitely knew beforehand. So I'll give you like a little background onto how that happened. I think, over the 4 years that I was running Project You, I had like a dream of like all the things that I wanted. And during that time, I actually I had a coach, Lara Kozan, and she was like really good. Like she taught me a lot about like scheduling, how to like run a team, getting things done. So actually there was like a 3-day boot camp that I did. And I actually have shown this document to Megan, and it's very funny because we've executed on pretty much everything on this document. I did like a boot camp with her and another lady named Kate Muker. And I literally designed the whole entire business for Modern Day Wife. I didn't do everything, but I listed all the things that I wanted to have. So I listed like, I want to do events. Obviously there was no digital events at the time, but I was like, I want to do brunch and learns. Like I want to have merchandise. I want to have a membership. I want to have a book, all of these things. And so I think that made it really easy to find the right person to partner with and to go into business with, because then I knew like when Megan came to me and she had all these ideas, I knew her ideas and purpose were the exact same as mine. And I think that's super important with whoever you're working with, because we're able to just literally like she kind of said before, like we're doing all of this, we're running and going, there's like no stops. Like we're not like, oh, I don't know about that. It's like, no, like we both know like this is what we want to do and we're going to do it. And we've also been really good at like dividing, I think, projects under like our own strengths. So her and I both lead specific projects that we're good at with our interns and other teammates. And then we're able to actually get this project fully done. But obviously, like as you go, sometimes you have new ideas. But I think the core things that we're doing right now definitely were like laid out from the beginning. I just need the right people to do it with. And then I found Megan and our team. Yes.
Wow. Okay. So what was the most challenging aspect of starting the business, growing it?
Well, I think there's always like, okay, like a little bit of like counter intention from yourself or from others. Like, it was something new and it was very different. I was like, I am actually engaged. I'm not a wife, but I was like, you know what? But this community is for like all women and it's for couples, and like I wanted that. So I didn't know if there would be like a hesitation, because I went from like running an all women's group to kind of completely doing like a 180, being like I'm doing events that are co-ed or I'm doing events that are just for women, but the topics are different. Like everything that we're doing is super tangible. Like it's all real tools that people are learning. And for my launch party, I did do a co-ed event, and I was like, I have no idea what this is going to be like. You know what I mean? Are people going to love it? Is it going to be weird? Is the energy going to be off? And what I mean by that is like, normally it's all women in the room, but I was curating an event where there was couples being interviewed. Like my panel was a power couple panel. So I had 3 couples that were interviewed by Karen Bond, who was like, I picked someone else to do the interviewing for this event because I really wanted to highlight her. So yeah, there was obviously all these like unknowns, but I kind of just was at a place where I was like, I know that this is what I want, and I know that I'm good at hosting events, and I know that every time I host an event, there's always hiccups, but they always are amazing. So I like really had that trust for myself, and the event was completely incredible. Like the feedback was unreal. Actually having both like males and females in the room created a completely different dynamic. And I realized also strategically for business that this was so much smarter because I was able to capture an audience much larger because I could sell tickets to men, women, and couples. So it was really, I think, a good win, and it was a lot of fun. So I hope that, yes, answers the question, but yes. Mhm.
All right. So, as co founders, I'd love to hear what your biggest lessons were and your biggest rewards since starting this and scaling it.
Yes, of course. Okay, so I mean, I think the biggest lesson overall is like you kind of have to be willing to be like dedicated to your purpose and cause. Like, there's going to be some people, and I'm sure you've experienced this maybe with your podcast. Some people are going to love what you're doing. Some people are not going to like what you're doing. Some people will support it. Some people won't. But I think if you're really like committed and you just keep showing up and are like willing to learn how to like get better or improve your communication or improve your sales strategy or whatever it might be, eventually like you're going to get a yes, or someone's going to be like, yes, I want to be a part of your community. Right. So I think that that's obviously, like a lesson that I've like learned, and also like not doubting yourself. Like I'm sure maybe tons of people have experienced this where you're not sure if you can do something or if you should do it or go for it. But I think if you just kind of take action no matter what, even when things don't go right, you take responsibility, you figure out how to like smooth things out. Or if you have like, I guess what I'm kind of saying, like maybe you missed something at an event or you didn't do something right. Like if you just take responsibility for it, own the mistake, you move on, right? Like life continues to move forward. So you can't really get stuck on a mishap from the past. You just kind of have to improve. So I think that that's kind of been a few things that I've really realized. And I think the biggest reward in having like a co-founder is like you have this other person who's like your teammate and always on your team. And Megan, if it works for you to chime in, totally chime in. But we were talking about this earlier. It's like, when you have someone else there to motivate you or be accountable with you, like you do get more done, because every morning you're waking up, and when you don't maybe feel like doing that meeting or feel like making a sponsor call or feel like laying out a whole calendar for a month of social media, you're like, no, but I'm doing this for my team. Like it's just not about you. So I think that that's one really cool thing. Like I realized like, wow, like our business making money and our business and being able to employ other people and our business being able to help women and couples, like that's like a bigger purpose of why to make a sales call or why to get a sponsor, because like it doesn't just help me, it like helps our community. We can give back, we can donate and do these things. So I think what I'm getting at is like when you have someone else there with you, you are able to really do more. So I would say for sure I love collaborations. I love business partnerships if they're aligned. I think it's the best thing you can do.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that. Like having somebody there with you. I mean, Megan, you probably know this whenever you were doing your Project You by yourself, but when you are doing a business by yourself, it is very lonesome and there isn't anybody there to kind of, partner on and, motivate each other and get each other kind of amped up to like do this other project and like take on more and do all that stuff. It's very lonesome at times. So I can definitely see the benefit of having a team or a co-partner or anything like that there with you to help you be able to keep growing in your business.
Definitely. Completely agree.
I think Megan, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. The biggest rewards is that there is someone you can share all of this with and who's as excited about it as you are, because not everyone else is going to want to hear you talking about how amazing this is and what you're doing. And there's so much that we could talk about that we're excited about, and we're able to work hard together be in the trenches together, but also reap the benefits together. And so you get to, I don't know, I've really seen, I used to be such like a, oh, I'm so independent, all this kind of stuff, which I am, but I've also learned the value of having a partner and how amazing it is and how helpful it is, because you do complement each other, you do push each other, and you help each other grow. And this is something that I would never have been able to do what we've created by myself. It just wouldn't have happened. And same thing with the nonprofit that I still run, actually with my dad. I would have never been able to do that by myself. It's always been a partnership that's enabled me to be able to do these things. So I do think having a partner that's on the same page as you, and that's a key part of it, is really important.
100%. I totally agree with that. Now, what strategies did you guys implement aside from being on every platform available to reach your community? Did you guys use to create over 10K followers in such a short period of time? Like, this just blows my mind. How did you guys do this?
I mean, I know Megan's really passionate about some of these programs that we started to do. So I'll touch on it briefly, and then I'll let her share about, like, we definitely created an ambassador program, which is like one thing that I think we both love is finding people who, fit the profile of the modern day wife, the modern day women, who are connectors, who want to, get out to in their community. So these people, we feature like an IGTV with them. So they talk about a little bit about what they do, what they offer, and then they also share and promote our events. And in return, they get to come to our events for free. So we're always looking for ambassadors, and we also pay them a commission. So like there's a good exchange, right? And that's allowed us to really have ambassadors from Canada or the United States. So that's really been a cool thing that we did. And then I know Megan loves these other programs that we've got. So I'm going to let her tell you about this new series we just launched yesterday, which is really fun.
Yeah. So we want to make sure that we are actually providing the resources that we promise, right? So we're promising that we're a one-stop shop for women who are doing it all. And in order to do that, we've decided we really want to highlight people who are at different stages of their life, whether, again, they're a couple or they're single or whatever, and also career. And so we basically just launched a campaign. We have several that are coming up, but we launched it yesterday, and it's the Modern Day Couple, where every week we have a different couple who will do an Instagram takeover of our account. So we'll get to support people who are in relationships, let them talk about a day in the life of their relationship. What are they doing from home right now during COVID, all these various things. And so it also brings together that community and supports people who are in relationships that we want to help them to have a community. We also are launching other campaigns that are similar to that right now. And the whole purpose of that, yes, of course, it will grow the social media, but it will also attract people who want assistance in these areas of their life and to be surrounded by people who are positive. And that's what we're trying to do, build more of that community. Then there's some other really cute campaigns that we've launched that there's two of them. One of them is called Modern Day Wife Dailies. And what this is, and I'm sure, Jessica, you probably have experienced this, that all of a sudden you'll be working or you'll be in the middle of the day and you'll come up with just an amazing idea or quote, or something funny or just something you thought of that you're like, oh, I should share this with people, but nothing really ever comes out of it. And the truth is, I guess it's sort of like when I was little, maybe, if you save every penny you get, you'll be, how many pennies will you have? There was some kind of thing like that. But same thing with this, like if you actually wrote down all of these quotes, like you could probably have a whole book. And so we've already launched that campaign, Modern Day Wife Dailies, which literally we have a template. And if there's something we think of during the day that's smart or witty or whatever, we go to the template, we write the quote down, and we share it. And so this way people, it's relatable, it's real. It's not something that we're like, let's just make up quotes right now. It's like it's actually from life experience. So that's another thing that we just launched. And then one other thing that I'll share, because there's lots that I could share, is a campaign that we actually didn't launch yet. I just realized we're launching it this month, which is a throwback to etiquette. And there is this really famous book called Emily Post's Book of Etiquette. And maybe it's not so broadly known now, but it is the authoritarian book on etiquette, and it's like a huge tome. And basically it lists all of this lost technology really on etiquette. And I became very interested in etiquette actually when I was dating, because I dated one guy who was much older than me, and he taught me a lot of it, and it was so enduring and magical. Like, I'll just give you a few examples, and this will kind of give a throwback to New York City too, is when you get into a cab, the guy is actually supposed to go in first, not the girl, which is what you would think, because he has to shuffle over to the other side, right? So the girl shouldn't be shuffling over to the other side. She should just sit down as soon as she gets in. So that was one thing I remember he taught me. Another thing was, this is more commonly known, is when you are walking on the sidewalk, the girl goes inside and the guy goes on the outside. And I think it came from many years ago, centuries ago, when people would literally pour their excretion, out the window. And so the woman, it wouldn't hit the woman. I know this is so horrible, but that's actually the derivation of it. Now it's more like you don't want the cars when they hit the puddles to hit the girl and all this stuff. That was another thing he taught me, and I could list more, but I thought these were like amazing. It's kind of the same thing. Like, I think it was in Pretty Woman or some movie where she didn't know which fork to use first, right? And some of this stuff, of course, would be dated, but some of it is really magical. And we thought, why not do a throwback to etiquette? And so we are launching that campaign soon. And basically what this does is it also gives people content that they can share that will be different. We want to have campaigns that are different than what other people are doing. And I don't really see a lot on Instagram promotion of relationships, etiquette, or quotes that are not just like a rehash of, something from Eleanor Roosevelt, which there's nothing wrong with that, but we want to have fresh, new content that can inspire people. So these are some of the strategies that we're doing. And again, all of this does take time, and it takes coordination, and it takes someone like Megan, who has an eye for keeping things on brand. Because since we're on this podcast and we want to provide education to people, one thing that can happen is when you do expand and more people come on board and you do launch more campaigns, is your brand can kind of get watered down, or different things come into it, and it loses its theme or its colors or its commonality. And so you do have to have someone, which this is a hat that Megan wears, is a person who makes sure everything stays on brand. So there you go.
How are you finding these different ways of communicating with your community? Like, that's creative.
Yes. Well, there's the good thing about most work is there usually is, actually, this is a really good question. I'm going to turn this into the answer I think will really help people. You can have a job where you just do exactly what you're supposed to do, and you time in and you time out and you get it done, and that's it. Or you can kind of wave your magical hand on things and, yes, do the work, which is not always glamorous and not always the most fun, but then really make it your own and create that position. So even if let's say you're selling insurance policies, right? Which could be kind of dry, but maybe you want to make it fun and you want to be interested in what you're doing, and you pitch to your boss, you know what? I'd love to make this campaign that we can launch on our social media, where I do a video on like the daily advice on how to stay safe, or how to, something like that, right? And you can take any position you have, as dry as it is, or maybe not so glamorous, and you can put your creation into it to make it more fun for yourself, more interesting for other people. And so you are using your creative side. Now, again, this might not be for everyone. Like, I have a friend who runs a bookkeeping company, and she's not interested in that at all. But if you are, and you want to expand what you're doing, and you want to feel like you're really making a difference, this is a way that you can do that, making it your own.
Amazing. I love that. I love it's so important to put your own spin on it. Like
Yes.
whatever it is that you're choosing to do, a lot of things have already been done and whatnot, but it hasn't been done by you.
Yes.
And you have your own special flair. You have your own special gift that you can share and make it your own. So I love that advice.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. It's definitely good because you'll feel less like on the assembly line if you do that.
Exactly. And sometimes it takes a different voice or a different approach for someone to actually resonate with it, right? Like sometimes you hear this advice or something from one person and it doesn't resonate with you, it doesn't sit with you, but then you hear that same advice from someone else at a different time, but it's in a different way and it just hits you.
Yes.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And I that kind of does bring me back to the advice I told you about Grant Cardone. You know, I think I had heard from different people before on like, oh, you need to be present on all platforms or different advice, and I actually didn't believe it, and I didn't think it was true, and I didn't follow it. And his advice totally changed that for me. I actually heard it when I was not on Modern Day Wife yet. And so what I did for my own nonprofit is I told our photographer, I said, okay, that's it. At every event, I'm shipping you a selfie stick. At every event, you're just going to take the selfie stick and do like a little video shot with the audience at the end of the event so that we have more, we can promote more, we can put more content on there, we can get more people's attention. And so I did implement it right away. Um, and and but it did take however he worded it at this live seminar I was at that got me to believe it and put it into action.
Mm.
And those are two different things. You can believe it but not put it into action. There is believing it, and then there is start, do it. And that is probably the hardest thing for everybody is doing it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Now, I've seen with your events, the virtual events, obviously they're not in person this year, maybe next year, but at these events, you've had incredible panelists and partners and sponsors and whatnot. And, my jaw absolutely dropped when I saw that you guys had Rebecca Minkoff, Haley Duff, Marisol Nichols, because I'm a huge fan of Riverdale. What are your tips for pitching and collaborating with these dream guests?
Well, I was like, this is definitely more of Megan's like expertise. So I feel like she definitely can share some tips with you. But I think one thing I just wanted to say about this part is I remember like when we first got Rebecca Minkoff, I think just it kind of comes back to having like a really great partner. Like we just started to think like a lot bigger. And I think actually for me, like having Megan think really big was a good thing too, because I was like, oh yeah, okay. Like you kind of feel like when someone else is thinking big, it's like makes it okay for you to think big, or like you're kind of on the same wavelength, like, yeah, we can get them. So and I just remember the day we heard back from Rebecca, it was like I was like in bed on my phone and she was like, oh my God, we just got Rebecca Minkoff. And I think that was just like a big win and like a good thing for us in terms of like, wow, realizing like we should just ask these people, like what we're offering is amazing. So I'll let her share with you on like her strategy or whatever she wants to say. But I do think you just kind of have to like know your value and go for it.
Yeah. And there is something to be said of being dogged and also at a certain point utilizing your network. So I'm going to touch on both of those. So the first thing is I will ask people for favors, but I'm very particular on it, and I'm very also careful and respectful of different people that I have and that I know in different positions, whether they're business executives or whoever. And a lot of people that I've met or whatever, I don't ask for anything for a long time. And I just their friend, and I invite them to things and so on, right? And when we started doing Modern Day Wife, I kind of just decided, okay, this is it. Like, I'm going to every single person that I've really ever networked with. I actually sort of made a list and decided this is the time for me to just now ask. And for me, it was a little bit easier to do it because I've been running a nonprofit for almost 20 years, which is a pretty selfless thing to do. There's hardly any money in it at all, and it's not like glamorous events. It's I've been working in New York City schools, putting on events at the schools for years, and sometimes it can feel a little thankless. And so I did, in a way, feel like, okay, I've earned this, so it's just a kind of a personal story for me, that I've done enough good that I can start to ask for help, which I haven't really done much. So that was one thing. But I do think, like, if let's say you are starting out and you haven't created that network yet, I think it's a matter of really making a list, and making it much bigger than what you think it is. If you think you're going to make a list, so let's just say of speakers, of 5 speakers, right? That's not going to work. You need to make a list of like 200 speakers, and you have to be willing to sit and pitch all of them over and over and over again, newly, without resentment, without disappointment, anything, until they say yes. And not being embarrassed and not being shamed. And a lot of, with the celebrity people that we reach out to, a lot of the time who I ask their contact for ends up being them recommending another client. And that's who we end up booking. So that's why networking is so important, because sometimes you don't get exactly what you're asking for, but you get something different that's could be even better and could have been a better person for your event. So that's one thing, is really making sure you have a huge list and constantly communicating to the list and promoting, but not in excess to the list. And secondly, it is being dogged, meaning I reach out to these people for every single event, and I have to not be embarrassed, because what I realized is at the end of the day, we're all people, and email and even especially the phone can be really intimidating because there's no face. But behind that email and behind that phone call is a person that probably has a cat or a dog, and they walk them in the weekend in their slippers, and they have a mom who they call, and they have their fears and they have their successes, and they have friends, and they were made fun of in school. And I have to kind of remember that we're all people. Like, even Meghan Markle, right? Like, Meghan and I put this big goal of having Meghan Markle at an event that we're doing. And I'll just be honest, I don't think that one's going to happen, because I'm pretty sure she'll only speak for money. But
we gotta make it happen. No,
yeah.
One day.
I'm not trying to doubt it. We're still going to do it, right? So I'm giving you a little secrets, but I'm not worried about this one. So basically is that, so with her, she did just write an article in the New York Times that she had a miscarriage recently, and I think she is trying to make herself definitely more relatable. So at the end of the day, like, I would feel fine asking her, because she's a person, and maybe our message, which is helping women in all areas of their life, might resonate with her, and maybe she would be willing to do it. You know what I mean? So, so there you go.
You never know what their answer is going to be. You never know. Like, you can have all these preconceived thoughts in your head that they're not going to be interested in all that stuff, but really, you just don't know. You need to ask, and you need to ask more than once, because just like everybody else, emails get lost, emails don't get read because their inboxes are overflowing, or maybe it's just not the right time at this moment. Yes. Never give up. Be persistent.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. It's so true. It's funny because that will happen. Like, sometimes also when you message so many people, like, sometimes these people will write back 6 weeks later, like, one of our major speakers that we've had, I thought she wasn't answering me, right? And she actually wrote back, I think almost 2 months later, being like, is this event still an option? And I was like, yes. And the event, I think, was in 10 days. And I was like, yes, you're speaking, we're having you, let's do it. And it was just that the person who was representing her wasn't doing it anymore. And she finally was checking their emails and got back to me. So,
Interesting.
yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Now, before we get into the Modern Day Wife and everything you guys offer, I'd love to hear from you how you set yourselves up for success, because I know that is probably very different given that Meg has a child, a 4-month-old, and Megan has a fiance and doesn't have any kids, and it's very different lifestyles at the moment. So how do you organize yourself, structure your days so that you can continue that momentum that you've created in your business while also taking care of yourselves, your relationships, your child?
This is such a good question. I think actually I feel like it's a good timing that you're asking this though, because I feel like Megan, obviously I'm sure you have a few things to add, but since we've been working together, I think things have changed so much. Like it's kind of crazy. All of, like she was saying, the things we've been together. I was living in Florida, then I came back to Canada. So there's been like a lot of shifts and kind of figuring out how to make things work. But I think the biggest thing that I've kind of realized is a few things. I think for myself, like I personally like to work out in the morning. So I realize if I don't do that in the morning, I don't do it. So like that's kind of the one thing I do before any work. And then also I play like a really important role because my fiance has like a business. So like I 100% own every single like house aspect. So from like our finances to food to everything, like that's my main hat. So I've kind of had to figure out how I do that with an expanding business of Modern Day Wife. And what I've done for the past, I guess, month that's worked really well is taking like one day a week to do everything household related. So that's kind of like helps me manage my home life. And that's really been successful. And then having to kind of put a few more boundaries, I think, for myself, because like Megan said, I would work all the time because I just love it, of kind of blocking off more evening time with like Corey, who's my fiance. But I think I just wanted to answer this question in terms of like when you run a business with a team, I'm very much like having weekly meetings. I really learned this in the corporate world, but I found it worked super well for driving success in a business and getting targets over the line. So we meet with like our team for Modern Day Wife. This is everyone who's a part of the company once a week, and we have never canceled this call from day one. And we've been doing this meeting, I think, since the summer when we started. So that's super beneficial. So I think that's crucial. Like if you think of your success, is you have to like keep the commitment there, because as soon as you kind of drop that commitment with your teammates, it like allows them to drop out on meetings. And I think that when a meeting's important and there's intention behind it, you do get results. So I'm not in like mindless meetings, but I think having specific meetings to get things done makes them get done. Otherwise, time will be replaced with something else in your calendar, and you'll wind up wasting time on social media scrolling or getting engaged in a conversation that's maybe meaningless. And I think if you want to excel, you have to be super clear on what you're doing and when.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think in regards to setting yourself up for success too, is having a vision of what you want, and then working backwards also on how do you make that a reality, right? So one thing that I don't like in someone I want to work with are people who talk about all these things that they're doing or they're gonna do or whatever, and then there's no follow up, or you do follow up and the person's actually flaking. I can't work with flakiness, right? Like I'm very I like to consider that I'm professional in how I do things. And so I think you have to decide what do you want to do. And maybe some of your goals are really big and they're not going to happen right now, but you can still put them there and then figure out what are the steps you need to do to make that happen. And then you have to start, because there are some people who will talk all day about what they're doing, and then you don't see a product. And I'm not interested in that, right? I want to, if I really, if I'm going to, if I have an idea, I want to make it happen. And that is actually why I knew somehow that Megan was the perfect person. And again, I look back, I don't know how I knew. I just knew this is who I had been looking for, because I had, I've been in nonprofit for so long that I did want to start doing something that was more along what I really have always wanted to do, which is more revolving around fashion and beauty and fun events and things like that. And I still run my nonprofit, but I'm adding on to what I'm doing. And we somehow connected, and we are getting things done. And I had been trying to find people for years, and would meet people and talk about things I want to do, and then pitch them ideas. Like, I'll give you one example. I had a bunch of friends in Los Angeles when I first came out here, and I had an idea for a television show, and I had friends who were already in the industry and so on. And I met with them all individually regarding what I wanted to do. And then was like ready to get it going. And what ended up happening was I was getting emails from them saying, so what's going on with this? Or what's the update? What's been done? And I was like, this is not what I'm looking for. This is not collaboration. This is not building this together. This isn't fun. This isn't utilizing all our different connections to make something happen. And nothing happened with that. And that's not what I'm interested in. I'm interested in someone who's just as excited and hardworking as I am, who will put their money where their mouth is basically the best way to describe it.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. There's nothing worse than somebody who is all talk, basically, right?
And that can be said not just in the career land, but even like in dating,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%.
Exactly.
So how do you structure your time, Meg, with a young child, and this new thriving business, and then also assisting on the nonprofit? Like, how do you manage it all?
That's definitely been a huge challenge. And the way I've been doing it is not really sustainable. My husband and I have recognized that we have to get a part-time person to watch the baby. But up until now, I watch him all day, and in between everything, like if he has independent playtime or he's taking a nap, I work. And when I put him down at night around 7:30, I work until usually 10:30 at night. So none of that is sustainable, but you know what? It is what it takes, and the thing I think that people don't realize, and I actually learned this from my dad. My dad is my partner in the nonprofit we run. Not partner, but we run it together. And he's a gum surgeon in New York, and he has been running for 20 years or 30 years now a monthly dental educational group where he brings dentists together. And he was valedictorian of his dental school, and he's the most motivated, high energy person I've ever met. He basically works 7 days a week. He's doing events at night. He's doing surgery during the day. He doesn't stop. He goes to the gym at night. He's like much better than I am. He has been running, doing push-ups and sit-ups every day. Like, he would come home when we were little and do push-ups and have us sit on his back, like when we were little kids, things like that to make it all work. And I worked with him for many years when I was in Manhattan. And so he taught me what it really takes to have success, which is he's very hardworking. He's the leader. He pushes everyone. And he's all over the place. And same thing, like if you look at a government official, like let's say a mayor or an assemblyman or whatever, they're out every night speaking at an event and working during the day. If you look at an actress who's active, they are filming, then they're doing photo shoots, they're doing interviews, they're flying here for press, blah, blah, blah. All these people behind the pictures and behind the makeup and behind the certificates and so on is a lot of hard work. And I'll bring it back to one thing. My grandma, who was actually my abuela, because she is Cuban, which is a whole other story. She told my dad, which he taught me, she said, if you want to be successful in school, you need to take your tuchus and sit on the seat and study. And that's what it is. There's no magic trick. It is you sit at your computer or you sit at your phone and you work. And so not sure where this all started. But you asked me, how do I manage my schedule? So I've had role models of people. The answer to that is I've had role models of people who have been very active, and that's what I've stylized or looked up to. And so right now it is crazy. I am doing a million different things, and I can do it better, which is the part what we're launching into 2021. We are going to get some part-time help. But if you want to make it work, there is going to be some hustling involved, which the good thing is that I'm passionate about this and I love what we're doing. So I'm willing to work really hard to make it happen. So there's no real magic to it. In an ideal world, if you had everything you wanted, of course, I would have a full-time nanny, a full-time housekeeper, a full-time cook, a full-time driver. That would be, of course, what I would want. But in where I'm at in my life, I don't have that. So I just, you kind of figure it out. So
I love that you said that, there's no magic. Basically, there's no magic wand, right? You can't just magically get there. You have to do the work. You have to do the work.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, let's talk about the Modern Day Wife and, how do you guys support women and couples and men, and what's on the horizon for you?
Yes. I mean, we definitely are super excited about lots of fun things that are happening in 2021. So coming up, we are doing another 3-part virtual event series. So we have an event January, February, and March. And so we have integrated into these events a segment that is from a power couple. So we're finding a power couple to speak at each of these events. So that's kind of the one thing that we really wanted to add for 2021. People loved the power couple segment in our December event. So we knew we had to do it again. So this upcoming event is called No Limits. Megan's super passionate about this event as well. So, and the tagline is 2020 is in the past, let's go. So we're really just saying let's do it. Let's go for 2021. So that is probably our main things. I will let Megan tell you a little bit more about the speakers for that event, but also what we're working on is our membership program called The Vault. So this gives people access to webinars, tons of content that they can download. It includes free tickets to the events. It's definitely a program for someone who's super committed to our community, who wants to connect with others and really, have it go right in all these areas of their life, as well as our merchandise. So those are kind of the big things that we're working on. And yeah, Megan, why don't you tell them about our speakers for January?
Okay, great. So our upcoming 3 events, January, February, March, we've launched all of them. We are selling them in a package right now, a bundle, so that people can watch all of them at a very steeply discounted price, which they can see on our website, themodernDayWife.com, which I do recommend everyone go to. We just launched a completely new website where you can check out our merchandise, you can check out our membership, and you can have access to, find out more about our upcoming events, but also view all of our past speakers, which is quite incredible. So you can see what type of people we have at our events. So we are launching this bundle price right now. The January event, like Megan said, is called No Limits. And then the tagline is 2020 is in the past, let's go. And the whole purpose of this event is to inspire people to, okay, let's get moving. Let's get into production. Don't get mired down into what you're hearing in the news and maybe what people are posting online. And in fact, I'll just add one thing here before I get to speakers. The best thing to do is probably to get off the Facebook and get off these places and reading people's discussions and just get into your work. That would be one quick thing of advice to tell people.
Mhm.
But getting back into the event itself, our speakers are Marisol Nichols, as we mentioned, who is the star of Riverdale. I think they're going on to their fifth season now, or
Yes, they are.
it's amazing. Like, who would have thought, right? And she's just getting more and more beautiful. Like, she's actually an inspiration to me because she's in her 40s and she looks the best that she's ever looked her whole life right now. So that's inspiration for me because I'm almost going to be there in a few years. So we have Marisol. She's our opening speaker. I'm so excited to hear her speak. If you ever have watched a interview of Marisol, she's definitely intense and smart, fashionable, and really very different than any speaker we've had so far. She actually probably reminds me a lot of myself in that she's from Chicago. I'm from New York. So she has that kind of like more intense urban kind of feel. So she's going to definitely bring a new flavor to this event. Then we have some really cool speakers that I'm actually really interested in hearing all of them because they're all new to me. And that is Monique Samuels, who's from the Real Housewives of Potomac, which is in Maryland. We have Kendra Bracken Ferguson, who is a partner of a organization called Respin. Halle Berry is her partner, and she also has her own branding business, and she does a lot of different things. She's spoken at a lot of digital events recently, and we're really excited to hear what she has to say. We have Kara Jordan, who's an influencer. She's actually new to me, and she definitely has that laid back kind of West Coast feel. So I know she's going to bring her own flavor to the event. We have Allie Armstrong, who's from Canada. She's an event planner. She also is an actress. And lastly, we have Lindsay McCormick, who is a sports broadcaster who also is a beauty ambassador to different lines. So she's going to be talking about putting your best face on and how you do that, despite sometimes you don't feel your best. So how do you do that no matter what? So I'm really excited to hear what they all have to say. I think this event is going to be edgy. I think it's going to be really get people to be motivated to launch this year right. And I really highly recommend people get their tickets right now because the best thing you can do to get this new year off right is do not procrastinate. Do not look at the event page and then put it away or pick up a piece of paper that is in your inbox and put it down. No, handle it when you get it. Like you find out about the event, don't question it. Get your ticket and just go into action. And that's my biggest advice.
That's incredible advice. And that sounds like quite the lineup.
Yeah, I know it's amazing because all of these always start from scratch. Like we have our February and March speakers that are building right now. We have 2 for February, and I don't remember if it's 1 or 2 for March. And they start out, we always name out who we want, and then we get some of those, but then we also get people come out of nowhere kind of, and that is kind of where our speakers right now for February and March, they're all from just collaborations and then introductions and all these various things, and they're all new to us. So we're interested to hear what they have to say, and that's why we know that the events are going to be amazing because we just know we're excited to hear what they have to say. We know that they're going to bring a lot of education and inspiration to our community.
I love that. That sounds like such a great event. I'm definitely going to promote it because it just sounds incredible. And I think it's so beneficial because this year has been a complete write-off. And I think we have been in a daze this entire time. And it's now time to get back to work. It's time to not let this year get the better of us and, start putting into action in 2021 to work towards our goals.
Exactly. It's funny you said that about the year. I almost feel like we're starting 2020. I do feel like it's going to redo it. That's what it does feel like.
Yes. It needs a redo.
Yeah. Well, cool.
All right. Last question. If anybody wants to learn more about you, which they should, where can they connect with you? Where do you guys hang out the most?
Absolutely. Well, we're definitely hanging out a lot on the gram. We love Instagram, so you can find us there at The Modern Day Wife, as well as we did just redo our website. So we're very passionate about this. So you can find us there too, which is themoderndaywife.com.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, ladies, for joining me and for taking the time to share this incredible new business and how it can support us women and men in all areas of our lives. It's such an amazing community that I know are going to benefit.
Thank you for having us.
I'm Jessica, and thanks for tuning in today to Love Unplugged, the podcast. If there are any questions or topics you'd love answered on the show, head on over to www.projectloveco.com and share your request with me. If you haven't yet, go to iTunes and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast and share it with a loved one. Your feedback means the world to me, and the community we've created is what fuels our discussions here. After all, this is all for you. Join me next time for another unplugged conversation.